Hi everyone, Tish here with another John Banks review. Now this car is a little bit special for me because the Renault Mégane E-Tech was actually one of the first ever videos that I reviewed here on this channel. Fast forward to today and it's had a facelift, so I thought it was the perfect time to revisit it. The Megane has always been an important car in Renault's lineup, and in this fully electric form it's also a bit of a showcase of how Renault sees its future. With this update, Renault hasn't reinvented the wheel, but it has introduced some meaningful changes, from new technology to smarter charging to fresh styling and a sporty new trim. So let's dive in and take a closer look at exactly what's new and whether this facelift makes the Megane E-Tech one of the most compelling EVs in its class. For any further questions or queries that you may have throughout this video, or if you'd like to organise a test drive for yourself, then you can do that at John Banks Renault in Cambridge, Ipswich and our latest dealership in Colchester. I'll pop all the details in the description box down below. The Renault Megane E-Tech is an all-electric family hatchback with a crossover twist. It sits on Renault's CMF EV platform shared with the Nissan Ariya, which means it was designed as an EV from the ground up rather than converted from a petrol car. You've got two different battery options. So there's a 40 kilowatt hour battery for up to 186 miles of range and a 60 kilowatt for 280 miles. That's WLTP. So in the real world, you might see a little bit less, but it still puts it right in line with the likes of the Volkswagen ID3, Cupra Born and the MG4. Charging is quick too, up to 130 kilowatts of DC charging, so you can get from 10 to 80% in around half an hour. And on a home wall box, the car now comes with 11 kilowatt AC charging as standard, which is handy if you've got a 3-phase supply. Tech-wise, there's two big updates. There's a new one-pedal driving mode, which lets you accelerate and slow the car using just the throttle. It makes stop-start driving much easier, and it also helps to maximise your energy regeneration. There's also an 11 kilowatt bi-directional charger, which means not only can you charge more efficiently at home, but in the future you could even charge power appliances using the car or feed electricity back into the grid. Renault is one of the first mainstream brands to roll this out across its lineup, and it's an exciting piece of future-proofing. Now, what's new with this facelift? Well, on the outside, Renault hasn't ripped up the design, and I think that's a good thing because the Megane was already one of the better looking EVs on the market. But you do now get fresh alloy wheel designs, tweaked lighting signatures and some new exterior colours to keep things looking sharp. The big update, however, is the addition of the new Esprit Alpine trim. It sits above Techno and gives the Megane a sportier, more premium feel. On the outside, you'll notice the Alpine-inspired design cues like matte grey inserts, gloss black badging and bespoke alloy wheels. Inside, you get sports seats made from recycled materials, finished in Alpine's trademark blue stitching. It's subtle, but it really does lift the cabin and helps the car to stand out. Now, inside of this facelifted model, it hasn't been completely reinvented, but Renault has made some useful improvements which I really appreciate. Front and centre, of course, is this open-R display system. So you've got a 12.3-inch driver's display and a 12-inch portrait-style infotainment system. The infotainment runs Google built-in, so you've got Google Maps, Assistant and the Play Store right there, without ever needing to plug in your phone. It's smooth, it's responsive, and arguably, it's way better to use than Volkswagen's ID3 system, which comes with a lot of criticism. The driver's display can be customised to show range, navigation or safety info, and it all feels intuitive once you've lived with it for a day or two. Material quality has also improved slightly with this facelift, so Renault is using more soft touch materials on its trims like the Esprit Alpine. You get recycled fabric with contrast stitching. It feels modern, tech focused, but not stripped back in the way that some minimalist EVs do from Volvo, for instance. Storage up front is decent. You've got a wireless charging pad, a couple of cup holders, deep door bins and a clever open space under the centre console, which works really well for bags or bigger bottles. And with this being the new Esprit Alpine trim, it does get some I think, really great details, but some people may find them a little bit conflicting, and that is the blue carpeted areas. So you get them inside the door cards, which actually I think is fantastic, so items won't rattle around, and it does brighten things up. But you also get blue floors as well, and maybe that's overdoing it just a little bit. But I love how cohesive it is. It matches in with these blue flashes that go across the dashboard, and you also have the blue details on the seat belts and also the seats. You'll also find those lovely little French flag details, which just really hark back that this car has been designed in France, and it's also built in France's electricity. This really is a car which is focused on everything electrified, which I really love. The steering wheel is great. You've got the red, white and blue stitching. You have got the gear selector behind the steering wheel, but unlike the Renault 5, on this one you actually have a park button which is on the end of it, which I actually really like. You've got a lovely button on the steering wheel which changes your drive modes. You can toggle between sport, personal, comfort, eco, and it also changes the colours on the dashboard and on this central console, which I really think lifts it above some of the competition. For instance, Cupra used to do that, but they don't do it anymore, so I love that you still have those touches inside here. So moving on, let's talk about how the Megane feels out on the road, because this is where Renault really wants it to stand out in its other EV lineup. Right from the start, you can tell that this isn't just trying to be another soft, floaty family EV. The suspension has been retuned for this facelift, and it makes the car feel tighter and more responsive. Renault has deliberately given it a sportier setup, and honestly, it shows. Through town, the steering is nice and light, so it's easy to park or thread through traffic, but the more speed that you carry, the more the chassis comes alive. It corners with real confidence, and that low centre of gravity from the battery pack helps it to feel properly planted. You don't get much lean in the bends, and the car changes direction sharply, which means it feels more like a sporty hatchback than a chunky crossover. It is still on the firmer side, so yes, you will notice bumps and broken tarmac more than something like a Kia Niro EV, but that's part of the character here. Renault has been quite clear. The Megane is a driver's car for the electric range, and I think that's a fair claim. Performance is strong too. With up to 220 horsepower, it will do 0 to 62 in about 7.5 seconds. So not hot hatch fast, but quick enough when you put your foot down. It feels eager and responsive, and with the instant torque from the electric motors, overtaking or pulling out onto faster roads feels effortless. The new one-pedal mode adds another layer to the driving experience. In town, it makes life easier because you're basically modulating speed with just the one pedal, hence the name, while also putting energy back into the battery. It feels natural after a few minutes, and it really suits the stop-start nature of city driving. The rear of the Megane E-Tech is sometimes criticised for not having the most amount of headroom due to the sporty sloping roofline of the vehicle. However, I think it's very good in the back here. Sure, headroom could be slightly more, but this is still more between a hatchback and an SUV, so if you need more headroom, then you could go for something like the Scenic. But inside the back here, I've got some really useful features. I've got 2 USB-C chargers, a completely flat floor because of that electric architecture. I've also got rear seat ventilation, pockets on the backs of the seats, but also these pockets up here, which are perfect for putting in your mobile phone. I've got 2 ISOFIX fitments. I've got a little bit of storage inside the doors, just enough to pop a few items. The main criticism, however, is there's no central armrest with any cup holders, so there's nowhere to put cups in the back here. However, other than that, I think it's a very good offering for what is a small SUV, and still far better than something like a Jeep Avenger or a Fiat 600e, which features no storage in the doors, no rear seat ventilation, and certainly no clever features for popping your mobile phone. Boot space is a little bit of a weird one because the Megane kind of toes the line between hatchback and SUV. Compare it to many hatches like the Volkswagen ID3, it has much more space. So inside here you get 440 litres, and that's far more comparable to something like a Nissan Qashqai. But also compare it to more practical SUVs and it falls down in some of its practicality elements. For instance, you haven't got an adjustable boot floor, and that means it's quite a low down dip if you want to load in heavy items. But it's cavernous inside there, and underneath the boot floor you still have even more storage underneath to pop your charging cables. It's just not the easiest for getting stuff in and out. So if you've got poor mobility, then there's other options in the Renault range which would probably be more suited to you, especially considering an electric boot isn't standard. So the boot of the Megane has its pros and its cons. Noise levels are good too. At motorway speeds it's quieter than most rivals, though you do get a little road noise on coarser surfaces, but generally it's calm, composed and relaxing. So yes, it's not the softest riding EV in the world, but if you value something which feels sharper, more connected and actually a little bit fun to drive, the Megane does deliver that. And for me, it's one of the reasons why the facelifted version is still very relevant against its growing list of rivals, even from its own company. Safety is something that Renault takes very seriously, and the Megane E-Tech has a 5-star Euro NCAP rating to show for it. You get adaptive cruise control, there's lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, traffic sign recognition and emergency braking as standard. With the facelift, Renault has also refined these systems to make them less intrusive. For example, the lane assist now feels smoother and the adaptive cruise control is quicker to respond in changes in traffic. You also get clever touches like automatic parking cameras that pop up when you're manoeuvring at low speeds, which makes the car easier to place in tighter spaces. And Renault has also introduced some attractive finance figures. Right now you can get a new Megane E-Tech from £30,995 after the new EV government grant, or from around £279 a month with 0% APR. Add in Renault's 8-year 100,000 mile battery warranty and it looks like a very strong package. Of course, for any more details on these offers, then please get in touch with John Banks directly. So, to wrap things up, the facelifted Renault Megane E-Tech hasn't changed dramatically, but the updates make it even easier to recommend. The new Esprit Alpine trim adds some real personality. The one-pedal system makes everyday driving smoother, and the bi-directional charging is a smart bit of future-proofing. Inside it still feels tech-focused but user-friendly, and with 440 litres of boot space, it's practical enough for most families. Yes, the rear headroom could be a little bit better, and it's not the cheapest EV in its class, but that balance of style, technology and driving enjoyment means it continues to stand out from the crowd. For me, it's also a little bit special to come back to this car, since it was one of the first that I drove for the John Banks Review channel. It's great to see how Renault has refined it and imagine what the next EV journey will be. If you'd like to test drive the updated Megane E-Tech or simply learn more, then make sure you get in touch with the team at John Banks. They'll be happy to help. I'll pop all the details down below. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to more John Banks reviews, and I'll see you in the next one.